Erev Shabbat Shalom Rabotai. We're continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Maasrot. We're up to Perek Dal Mishnah Gimel. Today's Mishnayot should be Nishmat Neria ben Tzvidlana Aranbayev and Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov Menuchatam Began Eden. Amen. In Mishnah 1 in this chapter, we learned that salting sets the Maaser obligation and prohibits snacking from the produce that was salted. Our Mishnah is going to discuss this halakha in further detail. The Mishnah says, Hanotel zetim mina ma'atan. If someone takes olives from the vat in which they were placed to be softened before they're pressed, because the Mefarshim explain, before olives are pressed to squeeze out the oil, they have to be softened. This was done by placing them in a large vat and letting them sit in it for several days. The pressure and the heat of the large pile of the olives would soften them. The Mishnah says, Tovel echad echad b'melach ve'ochel. He may dip the olives one by one in salt and eat them without separating Maasrot, meaning he may dip one olive into the salt and eat it, and then dip the next olive and eat it. But if he salted an olive and placed it in front of him, and then salted a second olive, he's obligated to separate Maasrot before eating them. And the Mefarshim point out, since he's not salting the olives, but he's dipping them in the salt to give them flavor, dipping and eating one at a time would not be enough to set the Maaser obligation. The olives also have to be combined in order for the obligation to take effect. Like we learned in chapter 2, Mishnah 5, combining two fruits or vegetables is a factor in causing their Maaser obligation to take effect. Now the Mefarshim point out, this seems to contradict what we learned in Mishnah 1 in this chapter, because the Mishnah there said that it is permitted to dip any amount of olives in salt without tithing them, because only treating olives with salt creates a Maaser obligation, not just dipping them in salt. So some Mefarshim answer that the first Mishnah was referring to dipping olives into a small amount of salt. That would not create a Maaser obligation. But our Mishnah is referring to a case where he dips them in a large amount of salt, which looks more like treating them with salt. So the halakha here is that if two olives are dipped before eating one, their Maaser obligation becomes set and they can no longer be eaten as a snack without separating Maaser. Now the next Tana the Mishnah is going to quote holds that in some cases you may even salt and eat two olives together without having to separate Maasrot. He speaks of a case where the person eating the olives is tameh. Rabbi Eliezer says, Mina ma'atan lato chayav. If a tameh person dips two or more olives that he took from a vat of tahor olives, he's obligated to separate Maasrot before eating them. Umina tameh patur. But if he dips two or more olives that he took from a vat of tameh olives, he's exempt from separating Maasrot before he eats them. Because he returns the leftover olives that he does not eat into the vat. The Mefarshim point out, just to broaden, to understand the reasoning of the Mishnah, since the olives in the vat are tameh anyways, there's no reason not to return the leftover olives to the vat. And since he's going to be putting back whatever he leaves over, even the olives that he took were still considered part of the group of olives in the vat. And for this reason, their Maaser obligation does not become set until all the olives in the vat become subject to the obligation. Because the Mefarshim point out, fruits that can be returned to their original pile are still considered part of that pile, even when they're removed from it, like we learned in chapter 3, Mishnah 4. Therefore, their Maaser status must be the same as that of the large group from which they came. They cannot become set for Maaser and forbidden for snacking when the rest of the olives in the vat are permitted. However, when he takes olives from a tahor vat, he doesn't want to return the leftover olives to the vat. Since he's tameh, the olives that he took became tameh when he touched them. And if he returns some of it to the vat, he's going to make all the other olives tameh, and he doesn't want to do that. Therefore, these olives are no longer considered part of the group of the olives in the vat, and they can become set for Maaser on their own. Therefore, when he dips them into salt and combines two of them, they become set for Maaser. But when he takes olives from a tameh vat, he loses nothing by returning them there, since all the olives were tameh to begin with, and therefore they're considered part of the original group. Now, the Rambam does point out, the Rav doesn't tell us, the Rambam points out, that the first Tana of the Mishnah disagrees. He holds that even in the case of a vat of tahor olives, it's possible that the person's going to return the leftovers to the vat. The fact that the other olives will become tameh doesn't necessarily concern him, since he can put them aside to eat from when he himself is tameh. Another reason, it's possible for him to press them in a way in which the oil that comes out of them will not be tameh. The Mefarshim deal with that. But in any event, that's how the Rambam explains the opinion of the Tana Kama. That is in Rabotai Mishnah Gimel. Mishnah Dal now is going to discuss, based off the previous chapters we learned, when we may eat a produce as a snack before the Maasrot was separated, when you can't do that. The Mishnah is going to explain what's considered a snack and what's considered regular eating when it comes to drinking wine. Shotim alagat ben alachamin ben anatznonen patur divrei Rabbi Meir. Shotim alagat, a person may drink wine while leaning over the wine press, ben alachamin, ben aratzonen, whether he mixes the wine with hot water or with cold water, patur, and he's exempt from separating Maasrot from it, because drinking wine over the wine press is considered drinking as a snack. However, he cannot take the wine and drink it outside of the wine press, since that would be considered a regular drinking and not a snack. And these are the words of Rabbi Meir, and the Mefarshim explain what does it mean with hot water, with cold water. The wine in the times of the Mishnah was strong, and people therefore mixed it with water before drinking it, as the Gemara tells us in Masechet Shabbat, page 77a. Now, Rabbi Meir says that whether you mix it with hot water or cold water, you can drink it only while leaning over the wine press would be considered a snack. However, the Mefarshim say he must make sure that not only his head is over the wine press when he drinks, but most of his body as well. Otherwise, we're concerned that he may forget and bring the wine outside the wine press and drink it there, which would be forbidden according to Rabbi Meir, without separating Maasrot first. Now, according to Rabbi Meir, just to explain his opinion, drinking wine outside of the wine press is considered a regular drinking, which will be forbidden until Maaser has been separated. Only drinking in the wine press would be considered snacking. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Tzadok mechayev. Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Tzadok, obligates him to separate Maasrot from the wine before drinking it, even if he leans over the wine press while he drinks, because we are concerned, according to Rabbi Eliezer Bar Tzadok, that he may take the wine out of the wine press and drink it there, which would be prohibited, because Rabbi Elazar does not consider even leaning most of his body over the wine press enough of a safeguard. But the sages say, Alachamin chayav. If he mixes the wine with hot water, he's obligated to separate Maasrot before drinking it, because he's not going to pour any leftover wine back into the wine press, because the Rav says the hot water can spoil the wine still in the press. But if he mixes it with cold water, he's exempt from separating Maasrot before drinking it, because he pours the leftover wine back into the wine press. Therefore, his drinking is considered a snack, even if he drinks it outside of the wine press. And the Mefarshim explain that the Chachamim hold that mixing water into wine before drinking it makes the drinking that falls into a regular drinking not a snack. However, the fact that he can pour what he leaves over back into the press prevents his drinking from becoming a regular drinking. Therefore, as long as he drinks it near the wine press or even outside of it, the Mefarshim are going to tell us, so that he could still pour whatever he leaves over back into the wine press, his drinking is considered a snack. But if he mixes it with hot water, in which case he's not going to pour anything back into the press, because like we said, it's going to spoil the wine that's still in there, his drinking is considered a regular act of drinking and not a snack. According to the Chachamim, if you want to understand the opinions, where you drink is not important. The only factor that we're concerned with is what kind of water you mixed it with. If you mixed it with cold water, you can drink it even outside the wine press, because you're going to return it to the vat. If you mixed it with hot water, you cannot drink it even over the wine press, because you're not going to return it to the vat. Whereas according to Rabbi Meir, it's the other way around. We don't care what you mix into it. The only important factor we consider is where you drink it. And the Rav tells us, Halacha follows the sages, that again, if you mixed it with hot water, you're obligated to separate Maasrot before drinking it. If you mixed it with cold water, you're exempt from separating Maasrot before drinking it. And that is in Rabotai today's Mishna Yomi. Everybody should have Erev Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.